question is, can you do the same with VS Code? Because if you cannot do the same with stuff that are so trivial like this, I mean, that's a problem. Okay, so we have a set of lines, and every time you see an empty line, that's a separator between one elf and another elf. We need to figure out a way to sum up all these numbers separately, each elf on its own, and then we need to take the biggest number, and that's how we solve the first part of the challenge. I'm going to use the global command, and I'm going to select all lines that contain a digit. I'm going to join them from the bottom to the top. By default, the join command, the J that I just used, it joins lines, but it adds its own delimiter, and the delimiter here is a white space. I want to add my own delimiter. In this case, it's the plus sign. So I can say I want to substitute each white space with a plus sign. That's beautiful. What's next? Well, I need to evaluate each line. I'm going to select the whole buffer, and I'm going to call the basic calculator. And when I do this, you can see every line was evaluated. I'm just going to use sort, the one that comes with vim. I want it to be numeric. And that's it. That's the solution to the first part, 71,502. The second part is we need to only select these three lines and then sum them up. If I select the whole buffer again, I can specify that I only want the first three lines, and then I can just, join them. Now, because now we don't have any empty lines or any separators that we need to respect, we can just join all these lines with our own delimiter. I'm going to use paste for this. Okay, this is another Unix utility. I'm going to say that I want them in series, sequential, like just in one line. And then, as I said before, I need my own delimiter, which is the plus sign. And finally, I'm just going to call basic calculator again. And that's it. All right, goodbye. And I'm just joking because this is the first episode and I want to explain a couple of things that I want you to be aware of, what to expect in the next upcoming 6 weeks, what to do when you don't understand something, how to look for answers, how to look for the documentation. It's very important. If you heard the term tutorial hell, this is going to be hands-on hell, which is practice, 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 practice. At the end of the day, I'm going to give you a couple of exercises so that you can try these on your own. By the end of this video, you're going to learn how to compose this command that solves the whole puzzle, or we're going to learn how to use regex to accomplish the same things. This is the only time you're allowed to watch this video before you solve the problem. In the upcoming walkthroughs, you're not allowed to do so. You have to solve the problem before you watch me solve it. But today is an exception because this is the first episode. I'm going to show you how I'm going to solve it because I want to walk you through a couple of details that you need to understand before you go through this journey. Through the next 6 weeks, there are a lot of problems that you need to solve, and you need to solve them in a very particular way. If you go back to the README of the repo, you'll see that there are 2 scenarios that you need to put yourself into. Okay, so you were working, you were doing something, and immediately this problem came up. So you need to find a way to solve it as fast as possible. Here speed matters. The solution that you need to come up with, it needs to be better than the programming counterparts. All these problems that you see here in Advanced Code, everybody solves them using a programming language. Nobody solves them using a text editor, but we are. So you have to come up with a solution that is better as the programming language counterparts. And the reason why I want you to do that is because I want to show you that even though these problems are low level, Vim is more than capable of coming up with solutions that are better. They are faster to compose. They are faster to come up with. If I am inside an insert mode and I'm typing something, then if I say Control R equal, I can access the expression register and I can evaluate anything I want. I can evaluate math, I can evaluate functions, expressions, anything I want, okay? So if I say 1 plus 1, I get 2. And I'm going to use this to my advantage. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is convert this input into expressions that I can evaluate. And then I'm going to feed them to the expression register. Okay, so if I try to substitute each new line with a character, let's say a plus sign, it also substitutes the empty lines. And we need those empty lines because we use them as separators. But here's the interesting part. If I say, I want you to look for a new line followed by end of line. And before I make any substitution, if you look at this input data, which lines are followed by end of line? This line, this line, and this line, and this line. Pretty much any line that is followed by an empty line, it's a new line followed by end of line, okay? Because I have a new line in here, and immediately that new line is followed by end of line, because there's nothing in that line, it's empty. So if I try to add like a plus sign in there, you can see that I'm adding plus signs to those lines. But the only thing that I want to do is I want to add plus signs to the contrary of this result. If I want to invert this, I should say I'm looking for a new line that is not followed by end of line. And this is something that we can accomplish by using a zero-word operator called look behind. In Vim, we can use @ and exclamation. Now, most of the time when I create my regex, I use the very magic mode. What is special about this very magic mode is I don't have to escape anything. And now if I try to run this and add, for example, the plus symbol, you can see that we added the plus symbol in the right places. Now, I need to evaluate them. I'm just going to use the substitute command, and I'm going to select all lines. And if I want to access what I just selected, I can use /0, okay? But I want to evaluate this. So how can I invoke the expression register? If I try to use Ctrl+R equal, you're going to see that yes, I am directed to, if you can see my mouse, yes, I do have access to the expression register, but this is an instant access. If I want to evaluate something right now, what I want to achieve is I want to pass something to the command and tell the command, hey, this is an expression register that I want you to evaluate when you have the time or when you can. I want you to think of it as a callback. To tell the command that I want to access the expression register, I say /equal. You know, I can say just equal, but I need to escape it, so I just say /equal. That's it. Now, everything I type here, the command will know that yes, we are in the expression register. So what I need to do is I need to access what I just matched. I said before we use /0, but hey, it's not working. Why is it not working? Because right now, I am inside the expression register. We use the function submatch. I can just evaluate this by using eval, a function, evaluates. And now you can see that we have calculated the sum of calories for each elf. And now I need to sort it in a numeric way. So I just need to pass in an argument n for numeric. And that's it. 24,000 is the right answer. If you find yourself not understanding something, you have difficulties with regex, you can go and search for things. If you see me use a symbol, use something that you're not familiar with, you can just come to Vim and you can access the help page and search for anything you want. So let's say you weren't familiar with look behind or look ahead. I can just say @ symbol or something like this, tab, and look, I'm in here. So if I use Ctrl+W -sign to maximize the window, I have access to the whole explanation. I can read and understand what is going on. So you just need to be comfortable reading the documentation. Now I understand that the documentation sometimes is hard to read for beginners, but you're not a beginner, okay? So just be comfortable with these things. If you see me do something and you don't understand what it is, just search for it, ask your member, ask your team. Like when you are enrolled with this program, you're going to have a team, right? Ask your team, search in Google, try to read the documentation. This is mandatory. If you're not going to do this, you're not going to achieve anything, trust me. You have to build this skill. Before I move on to the next solution, I just want to explain one more thing, that it's not because I showed you one solution that means that's the only solution that exists. There are so many ways to solve one problem. And the reason why there are so many ways is because the thing is so flexible. Vim comes with a language, its own scripting language. It's called Vim scripts. It is so integrated with the editor itself. If I try to write something very simple using Vim script, let's say I have a list of numbers, okay? And I'm going to try to loop over each list and just echo each item. So echo for num or for n in numbers, I want you to echo n, and I'm going to close the loop. So if I try to evaluate this Vim script that I just did, you can see it did echo 1 and 2, okay? So this is a scripting language, right? This is nothing new here. Very simple to read, very easy to digest. But here's the interesting part about Vim. You see everything here, every keyword, like for, let keyword, there's a counterpart command that achieves the same thing. I can achieve the same thing that I just showed you right here using commands. I say let numbers equal to 1 and 2, and that's a command. And I can also use the for command for n in numbers, and watch what happens when I hit enter. Automatically, it puts me in a line, in a nested line, so that I can put what's inside the for loop. What I want to echo n, and I click enter, and I can say, I want you to end this for loop. And yes, it does print 1 and 2. This is important to understand for 2 reasons. One, the whole scripting language is available to you through commands, okay? So I can be inside the file, do whatever I want, and I can invoke a command, and that command is basically just a programming language. That's one. Second, it's so integrated with the text editor that it feels like I'm not leaving my space. I am just in the same environment. I can achieve this. while I'm working on wherever I'm working on. And if I try to search for the built-in functions that come with Vim, you see we have a plethora of functions in here. And most of these functions, they come as commands too. At the end of the day, I don't want you to limit yourself to only using Vim. I want you to use the environment that it sits on top of. You know, if you use Vim in a console-driven development, you have access to Unix utilities. And the beauty about Unix utilities is we can compose them together to achieve bigger things. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you're going to face problems that are very complicated, and you have to just compose utilities together to solve the problem fast. Okay? And you will go through a lot of challenges in this 6 weeks, and you will have to come up with ways to compose utilities together to solve the problem faster. Why I'm mentioning this? For example, when we used sort before, I used the sort that comes with Vim, but in Unix, we do have a sort utility. It comes with a lot of flags, it comes with a lot of options. So there is another person, or there is a team of people who already spent so much time designing a utility that takes care of sorting. Pretty much anything that I want with sorting is implemented in this utility, okay? And you're going to develop your tool set. You're going to learn a lot of utilities. You're going to learn how to compose them together so that you can achieve bigger things faster. So how can I solve this using awk? You know, awk comes with its own scripting language, but it's very simple. So I'm going to start with creating a new file, just because I'm going to show you a couple of things. But it's not necessary to create a file. Inside our input, I can just invoke awk, okay? Sometimes I use GNU awk, which is an enhanced version of awk, but you can use wherever you want. And I can just type my command in here, which is the scripting language for awk. That's it. I can invoke it from here. What do you call this? Shebang. So user bin, and I can use awk or I can use GNU awk. So the syntax and what I'm doing right now doesn't matter. Input demo.vim, this is our file. Okay, so the way how awk works is I put a condition, right? A condition and an action, like what I want to do. Okay, and if this condition is met, the action will be performed. So let's say my condition is true, or I could just say 1. And what I want to do, I just want you to print the current line. So if I run this, you can see that I'm getting my input file. My condition is true, so take each line and sum up the numbers. So I'm going to say I have a variable called sum, and I'm going to add to it wherever it's inside the first field. And the way how I can access the first field is by using $sign and the number of the field. So fields in awk by default are separated by space. So if I have a number here, I have name here, something else. This is field 1, this is field 2, and this is field 3. Okay, so as you can see, it's super easy to access though. So what I said here, I said I want you to treat every line and just sum up the numbers. Now let's say at the end, I want you to print sum. As you can see, what it did is sum up all the numbers that I have. All right, here's another cool thing. You see what I did here? I said that I want this action to be performed when the condition is true. I can just delete this, and by default, awk will assume that, hey, I want to perform this action all the time on every line. And yes, I am still getting the results. Okay, how can you add something to a variable that doesn't exist? You have never initialized this variable. And that is true. Again, awk comes with a lot of defaults. If I don't do this, there's a default behavior that will happen. Now, in theory, that sounds really bad, right? But because we use awk to write small scripts and very targeted scripts, it turns out it's an awesome thing to do. Now, what I'm saying here is, first of all, I want you to go through each line and add that number to the sum variable, okay? There's one more thing. A line that starts with nothing, then ends, which is an empty line. This is a classic way of saying an empty line using regex, starts and ends with nothing, because this is our separator. I want you to reset the sum, okay? And print wherever you summed up to this point. First of all, print s, then reset s to 0. When I run this, you can see that now I'm getting the else. We can take this a little further, is I can say, you know what? I don't want you to print the sum because I don't care about it. All I care about is the maximum value. Check if sum is greater than max. So max doesn't exist, so awk will initialize it first at 0. So the first sum will be bigger than 0. If it is bigger, I want you to set max to the new sum value. Otherwise, I want you to just keep max the way it is. Just return max. So I'm just using ternary operator here, nothing new. So this is how we update the maximum value. The next thing we need to do is we need to also reset sum to 0. That's it. Now if I go here and I say at the end, I want you to print maximum. When I run this, you can see that I'm getting the right result, which is 24,000. You know what? I'm looking for lines that don't have any number of fields. The number of field is a constant here, and it returns the number of fields. So if we have a number that's greater than 0, that means we have fields. If we don't, that means the line is empty. So I can just say number of fields. That's it. And I'm using this to negate the condition. I can just turn them into one line, and I can come back here. You know, I can save that as a script, but the point wasn't me to write a script, because for me, I can just come here and just say, hey, I want to invoke. I'm going to select the whole buffer, which is the whole file that I'm working on right now, and I can invoke awk and just use that command. I can just type it right here. The second scenario in our repo right here, it demands from you to solve this problem using Vim scripts. And you have to take into consideration, once you solve this problem, it needs to be future-proof. If I waste like 30 minutes trying to solve a problem, if I waste 1 hour, 2 hours, I don't need to waste my time again in the future. So the problem, even if it grows, the solution that I write right now, it needs to scale with it. So what I'm trying to teach you with the first scenario, try to leverage other utilities to solve your problem. What I'm trying to teach you with the second scenario is to use Vim scripts in a creative way, because the language has access to things that you don't have access to in normal programming languages, because it was a language designed for a text editor, and that's an awesome thing. So if I ask you one question, like, why do you want to get good at this? Why do you want to become really good? Because here you're not chasing, just becoming a little bit better. Throughout this journey, you're chasing excellence, and you need to have a good reason why you want to push yourself to that point. These tools, they give you a lot of flexibility. They give you a lot of things that you cannot achieve with other tools. But that does not mean you're going to become a better front-end developer. That does not mean that you're going to become a better back-end developer. Be very cautious of these things, because if you don't know, if you don't develop the right mindsets, if you don't develop the right philosophy, you're just going to waste a lot of time, because these things, they take time to learn. They take time to master. Just understand what is the end goal. This is why I want you to go to the repo, go to the main page. A maximum is going to take you 10 minutes. Read this, read the why, read all the season and what they include and why they existed. Understand that everything has a learning curve to it, and sometimes you might be better off doing other things